The road that led to Willow Creek was the kind of stretch most people avoided at night. It cut through miles of forest where the trees pressed in close, their branches arching over the narrow two-lane highway like skeletal fingers scratching at the sky. The headlights of the old Jeep barely pushed back the darkness, and every now and then, a low-hanging branch scraped against the roof with a sound that made the passengers flinch. Marcus was behind the wheel, his usual smirk fixed in place. He thrived on this kind of tension, thrived on dragging his friends into situations they had no business being in. Beside him in the passenger seat sat Emily, clutching her phone in her lap like it was a weapon. Her dark hair fell in messy strands across her face, and her wide eyes stayed glued to the window, scanning the endless trees for something she couldn't name. In the back, Josh sprawled out with his feet up on a backpack, trying to look relaxed but tapping his fingers nervously against his thigh. Beside him, Claire hugged her jacket tighter, her blonde hair pulled back, her lips pressed into a thin, worried line. "Man, it's just trees," Marcus said, trying to break the silence. His voice carried the bravado of someone filming for views, even though the camera wasn't on yet. "You guys are acting like this is a horror movie already." Josh scoffed but didn't look up. "Yeah, tell that to the 30 kids who went missing out here." Emily finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't 30, it was 27. Marcus glanced at her, smirking. "Oh, my bad. That makes it so much better." Claire shifted uncomfortably, pulling her knees up to her chest. "Stop! Seriously, this isn't funny. My mom used to tell me stories about Willow Creek. About the church." At the mention of the church, Emily's head snapped toward her, eyes narrowing. "You've heard the stories too," Claire nodded, her face pale in the dim glow of the dashboard. "Everyone in town has. They say it's cursed. That every 20 years, kids go missing. Always kids. Always last seen near the old church by the creek." Josh leaned forward, his interest piqued despite his attempt to look calm. "And no one's ever found them." "Not alive," Claire muttered. The Jeep fell into silence after that. The hum of the tires on cracked asphalt was the only sound, broken occasionally by the whisper of wind through the branches. Finally, Marcus clapped his hands against the steering wheel. "Perfect. That's exactly what we need. Creepy legends, real local lore. YouTube eats this stuff up. Paranormal channels are blowing up right now. If we get footage inside that church, boom, instant viral." Emily turned slowly to face him. "Marcus, this isn't just a game. Those kids, they really disappeared. Their families never found them." "Exactly," Marcus said with a grin. "Which means mystery, which means views, which means money. Look, nobody's gonna get hurt. We're just filming, spending one night and getting out. Easy." But nothing about Willow Creek was easy. By the time they pulled into the town, it was nearly midnight. Willow Creek was small, almost ghostly, with only one main street lined with closed shops and flickering street lamps. The only building with any sign of life was a diner near the center of town, its neon sign buzzing faintly against the night. Marcus parked outside and killed the engine. The sudden silence made the group uneasy. The forest seemed to loom at the edges of the town, pressing in close as though watching. "Food before fear?" Josh asked hopefully. "Bathroom before fear," Claire muttered, already climbing out. Inside, the diner smelled like burnt coffee and grease. A lone waitress wiped down the counter, her tired eyes lifting to study the newcomers with something between suspicion and pity. "You kids aren't from around here," she said flatly. Marcus grinned, ever the showman. "Road trip. Thought we'd check out some of the local attractions." The waitress froze, rag in hand, eyes narrowing. You mean the church? Emily stiffened. You know about it? Everyone knows about it, the waitress said, lowering her voice as she glanced toward the back where a cook clanged pans. But nobody talks about it. Not if they want to sleep at night. Josh leaned on the counter, trying to play casual. Come on, it's just an old building, right? The waitress didn't smile. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You shouldn't be here. The woods don't want you. And the church takes what it wants. The group exchanged uneasy glances. Claire's face was pale, Emily's hands tightened around her phone, Josh forced a smirk, and Marcus, of course, only looked more excited. Thanks for the warning, Marcus said, grabbing a handful of napkins like they were supplies for battle. We'll be careful. The waitress shook her head, muttering something under her breath as they left. Something that sounded like, "Careful won't save you." Back in the Jeep, the group drove deeper into the woods, following the narrow dirt path that led to the creek. The headlights cut across fallen branches, weeds creeping across the road, and finally, at the end of the path, the silhouette of the church. It stood hunched and broken, its steeple cracked and leaning, its windows shattered like blind eyes staring into the night. The wooden doors hung open just enough to reveal darkness inside, deeper than the night itself. The Jeep idled in silence. Nobody moved. Finally, Marcus grabbed his camera from the dashboard, the red recording light flicking on. All right, guys, this is it. The legendary Willow Creek Church. Abandoned for 50 years, surrounded by disappearances, cursed by God knows what. And tonight we're going in. Claire's voice cracked. Marcus, I don't. But Emily cut her off, her voice trembling but firm. We came here for answers. We're not leaving without them. Josh sighed, rubbing his face. God, I hate this, but fine, let's get it over with. The group climbed out, the night air colder here than it had been in town, the sound of rushing water faint in the distance where the creek wound through the woods. Every step toward the church felt heavier, the ground itself resisting their weight. As they reached the steps, Claire stopped, clutching Marcus's arm. Do you hear that? They froze. The woods were silent. No crickets, no wind. Just silence so complete it rang in their ears. Then, so faint they almost thought they imagined it, came the sound of children. Laughing. High-pitched, playful, echoing from somewhere deep inside the church. Marcus's grin faltered. For the first time all night, he didn't have a joke ready. Emily raised her phone, flashlight flickering against the rotting wood of the doorway. Her breath shook, her whisper barely audible. They're waiting for us. The wind cut sharper that evening, as though the trees themselves were whispering warnings to the four college friends. Alex gripped his camera tightly, the red light blinking in rhythm with his quickening heart. This is gold, he muttered, trying to convince himself as much as the others. But Emma wasn't convinced. She glanced at the boarded-up windows of the church across the creek, her breath coming out in uneven clouds. Something about this place isn't right, she whispered. They'd set up camp in a clearing just a short walk from the abandoned church. A circle of tents stood around a flickering fire, but the woods seemed to swallow the light as if night itself was hungry. Jason, the jokester of the group, tried to lighten the mood. Come on, Emma. Haunted church, missing kids, creepy stories. It's perfect for our channel. Our subs will eat this up. He grinned, but his grin faltered when a sudden snap of branches echoed from the shadows. Sarah whipped her flashlight toward the trees. The beam cut through fog, landing on nothing but misty darkness. Probably a deer, Jason said, forcing a laugh, though even he sounded unsure. Yet deep inside, Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd read enough folklore to know that Willow Creek didn't give warnings for free. After dinner, Emma excused herself to the creek's edge to wash her face. The water shimmered unnaturally, like black glass reflecting the night sky. As she bent low, she swore she heard a child's laughter rippling beneath the water. Her breath caught, eyes darting around, but no one was there. Then, just beneath the surface, pale fingers brushed against her reflection. Emma stumbled back, screaming, and the others rushed over. "What happened?" Alex demanded, but when he aimed the flashlight at the water, it was calm, silent. Only the moon stared back at them. I saw hands," Emma stammered. Something touched me." Jason shook his head, muttering, "You're just tired." But Alex didn't argue. He'd caught something on camera, static, followed by a faint voice, almost too quiet to hear. When he rewound the footage, the whisper became clearer. "Don't stay here, it's not safe." The group fell silent. Later that night, inside their tents, none of them could sleep. Jason kept cracking jokes, though his voice cracked with nervousness. Sarah read aloud from her notebook, a collection of legends she'd researched before the trip. "It says here the church was built in 1853, but the land was cursed long before that. The Shawnee tribe called it the Hollow of Echoes. They believed the land itself could swallow children's voices, trapping them forever." Emma groaned. "Why are you telling us this now?" But Sarah continued, "Every 20 years, they said the Echo Man returned to claim new voices for his collection. The last disappearance was 2003. She looked up, her face pale. "That means this year." Jason laughed too loudly. "Oh, come on, you can't actually believe that." But his laugh died when a sound drifted through the night, soft singing, faintly melodic like a lullaby. It wasn't coming from one direction. It was everywhere, above, around, even beneath their feet. The four of them froze, listening, as a childlike voice sang words none of them could understand. Alex fumbled with his camera, turning it on, but the screen flickered and died instantly. "Power drain," he whispered, though his hands trembled. The lullaby grew louder, the notes bending into something unnatural, until Emma clamped her hands over her ears. "Make it stop!" she cried. Jason tore open the tent zipper, but when he looked outside, the fire they'd lit was gone. Not extinguished, gone. Only wet ash remained. They huddled together in one tent until the singing faded, replaced by heavy silence. Sarah whispered, "We should leave tomorrow, pack up and go." But Alex shook his head. "Not yet, we're on to something big. If we leave now, no one will ever believe us." No one slept. At dawn, they stumbled out, exhausted, eyes ringed with shadows. Jason went to fetch water from the creek but froze when he spotted something carved into a nearby tree. He called the others over. It was a name. Freshly carved, jagged letters spelling Jason. His mouth went dry. I didn't do that." Sarah touched the bark. "It wasn't here yesterday." The air seemed to thicken. Emma turned, scanning the forest, and gasped. All around them more trees bore names. Alex, Sarah, Emma, dozens of other names too, some faded, others freshly cut. "Why would someone," Alex began, but stopped when he noticed the final detail. Every name was crossed out. Except theirs. Fear became suffocating. Emma wanted to leave immediately, but Alex insisted they press on toward the church. "We've come this far, we need proof." Reluctantly, they followed him across the creek, the fog thickening with every step. The church loomed ahead, its steeple crooked like a broken finger pointing at the sky. Its doors were chained shut, yet faint light seeped through the cracks. Sarah swallowed hard. "It's abandoned, right?" Alex lifted his camera, whispering, "We'll find out." They circled to a broken side window, and Jason, being the largest, boosted himself inside. He landed with a thud, coughing on dust. "Smells like something died in here," he muttered. He reached back, helping the others climb in. Inside, the church was eerily preserved. Pews sat in neat rows, though covered in thick dust. Candles melted into puddles on the altar as if they'd burned endlessly. And along the back wall, strange drawings of children's faces covered the wood, dozens of them, etched in black ash. "Guys," Emma whispered, pointing. One of the faces was smiling too widely, stretching from ear to ear, and beneath it scrawled words read, "Sing for me." Suddenly, the organ at the front of the church bellowed a deep note, though no one sat at its bench. The air turned icy cold. Sarah screamed as shadows peeled from the walls, twisting into childlike forms with hollow, eyeless faces. The friends backed up, hearts pounding. Jason shouted, "Run!" They bolted for the window, scrambling out into daylight, but the church door rattled violently behind them as though something inside wanted out. On the ground, Emma gasped for breath. "We shouldn't have come here. We woke it up." But Alex, clutching his camera, checked the footage and whispered, "It wanted us too." And somewhere inside the church, faintly but unmistakably, the lullaby began again. The air around the church seemed heavier now, as if the building itself were breathing. The four friends staggered into the sunlight, gasping, but sunlight here felt strange, dim, filtered, almost unwilling to touch the ground. Emma clutched Sarah's arm. "We have to go right now, pack our stuff and leave before," her words cut off when the church bell tolled. A single deep clang echoed across the valley, dust plumed from the steeple. Jason frowned. That thing hasn't worked in decades. "How?" The second toll followed, deeper and louder, rattling the ground. Sarah's teeth chattered with each vibration. The friends stared at each other, frozen in fear, until Alex raised his camera. "We can't run, not now. This is it. This is the proof we came for." Emma wanted to scream at him, but the third toll shook the air so hard it felt like their chests might crack. When the sound faded, silence pressed against their eardrums. And then, like a sigh through the trees, came the whispers. Low, childlike voices, dozens of them whispering in unison. The sound didn't come from one direction, it came from everywhere. Jason spun around, panicked. "They're all around us." "No," Sarah whispered, her face white. "They're inside us." Each voice pressed against their minds, half-formed words overlapping, building into one terrible chorus. "Come inside. Come sing with us." The ground beneath their feet trembled. Roots pushed up through the soil like skeletal fingers. The group stumbled back, but before they could flee, the church doors, chained and locked, creaked open by themselves. Darkness spilled out like smoke. And from that darkness, a single figure emerged. At first, it looked like a child, small, frail, barefoot. But as it stepped into the pale light, its proportions were wrong. Its limbs too long, its smile too wide, its eyes deep pits of black. The figure tilted its head, and in dozens of overlapping voices it whispered, "Welcome back." Emma screamed. Jason grabbed a rock and hurled it at the creature, but the rock passed through like smoke. The thing dissolved into mist, then reformed at the church steps. It raised a bony hand and pointed directly at Jason. His name carved into the tree burned in his mind. "Run!" Sarah shouted. They bolted into the forest, crashing through branches, their tents and supplies forgotten. But no matter how far they ran, the church bell followed them. Toll after toll, chasing them like footsteps. Finally, out of breath, they stumbled into a clearing. It was the cemetery. Rows of crooked gravestones jutted from the earth, names faded with time. Sarah clutched her notebook, flipping through trembling fingers. "Wait, this matches the records I found," she read aloud. "Every missing child, they're all buried here. At least their names are. Look." Sure enough, gravestones bore the names of children who had vanished from Willow Creek over the past century. But the dirt in front of each stone was smooth, untouched. "No bodies," Emma whispered. "They were never buried." Jason cursed under his breath. "This is insane. We're getting out of here right now." But as he turned, his flashlight beam landed on the nearest stone. Freshly carved, jagged letters spelling Jason Ward 2023, his own grave. He stumbled back, screaming, "No, no, 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 this isn't real." But the ground beneath the grave cracked, splitting open with a wet sound. From the earth, pale, childlike hands clawed upward, reaching for him. Jason thrashed, kicking at the hands, but more shot from the ground, gripping his ankles, pulling. The soil writhed like quicksand. "Help me!" he screamed. Alex and Sarah grabbed his arms, straining, while Emma shone her flashlight wildly. The pale hands shriveled in the light, hissing, retreating slightly, giving Jason just enough time to break free. He collapsed onto the dirt, sobbing, mud smeared across his face. "We have to leave this place," Emma said, voice shaking. "We have to," but Sarah pointed past the gravestones. At the far end of the cemetery, a stone mausoleum loomed, its door wide open. A faint glow pulsed from inside. "It's calling us," Sarah whispered. "No way," Jason spat. "We're not going in there." But Alex, clutching his camera, said, "That's where the truth is. That's where the voices are coming from." And as if to prove him right, the whispering grew louder, building into a chant. "Sing, sing, sing." Against every instinct, the group approached the mausoleum. Its interior was lined with shelves, not of coffins, but of jars. Hundreds of them, filled with dark liquid. Floating inside each one was something small and pale. Emma's knees buckled. "Oh my God, those are..." children's vocal cords, preserved, suspended in jars like trophies. The friends recoiled, gagging, as the whispers filled the room. Alex raised his camera, his hands trembling, but the lens fogged with condensation. Through the haze, he saw a figure at the back of the mausoleum, a tall shadow draped in tattered black robes, faceless but for a mouth that stretched impossibly wide. The Echo Man. The figure lifted its head, and the preserved chords vibrated in unison, producing the same lullaby they had heard the night before. The sound rattled their bones. Sarah dropped her notebook, clutching her ears. Jason shouted, "We can't fight this, we need to get out." But the mausoleum door slammed shut with a deafening boom. Trapped. The Echo Man's voice hissed inside their skulls. One voice, one soul, tonight you join the choir. The friends screamed, pounding at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The jars rattled violently, liquid sloshing, as voices screamed, cried, and sang all at once. And then the glow inside the mausoleum flickered, pulsing like a heartbeat. Emma realized too late it wasn't light. It was the church itself, breathing, waiting. The mausoleum door slammed shut, and the sound reverberated like thunder, shaking the shelves of jars. The four friends froze, backs pressed against one another as if their closeness might shield them from what lurked in the shadows. The glow pulsed again, lighting the room in sickly flashes, and every jar vibrated in sync. The Echo Man loomed at the far wall, its wide mouth splitting wider, stretching past the limits of flesh. From within, voices poured out, not just whispers but screams, laughter, lullabies, all layered into a grotesque chorus. Emma dropped to her knees, pressing her palms against her ears, but the sound wasn't only external. It was inside her head. Jason snapped. "I can't take this." He hurled a jar at the figure and it shattered against the stone floor, but instead of silencing the noise, it made things worse. A pale mist rose from the broken glass, coalescing into the shape of a child with hollow eyes. It screamed, the sound so piercing the others clutched their skulls, writhing in agony. "Don't break them," Sarah cried. "They're trapped souls." The child figure lunged for Jason, passing through him like smoke. His body convulsed, and he let out a blood-curdling scream, voice twisting unnaturally until it wasn't his anymore. His words overlapped, multiple tones spilling from his throat. "Help me join us, sing with us." Emma and Sarah pulled him away, but his skin burned cold. His eyes flickered between human and black voids. Jason gasped, voice splitting into two layers. "It's in me, it's inside." Alex gripped his camera, recording through shaking hands. "We need to find a way out." The mausoleum vibrated, dust falling from the ceiling as the walls began to constrict. The space was shrinking, pulling them closer to the Echo Man. The jars rattled harder, some cracking, spilling their grotesque contents across the stone floor. The liquid oozed toward them like living tar. Emma spotted symbols carved into the stone near the altar-like slab at the center. "Look, these are protection marks." She traced her fingers across the crude etchings, circles crossed with arrows, symbols resembling eyes. Sarah's research came flooding back. The Shawnee used these against the Hollow of Echoes. They believed the symbols sealed the voices. Desperate, they began scratching more of the marks into the floor with broken shards of glass. Each mark dulled the whispers slightly, but it also enraged the Echo Man. The figure screeched, a noise so low it shook their bones, and shadows exploded from its body, filling the mausoleum like black smoke. Jason collapsed, writhing. His chest heaved unnaturally, and his voice layered again, this time rising into the same lullaby. His body jerked in time with the jars, as though he'd become a vessel. Emma sobbed, "He's turning into one of them." Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, but her voice was steady. "We have to finish the seal. It's the only way to stop this." Alex shook his head, panic breaking through his determination. "If we seal it, Jason will be trapped too." Jason's body convulsed violently, bones snapping with sickening cracks as the lullaby poured from his throat. His eyes rolled back and black veins spidered across his skin. With a final guttural cry, his voice split into dozens, merging with the chorus of the jars. Jason was gone. The others screamed, grief and terror mingling, but the mausoleum walls pressed closer. They had no choice. Alex carved symbols into the ground furiously, Emma and Sarah joining in. Each completed mark forced the shadows back slightly, like shoving against a tide. The Echo Man howled, its mouth widening until its jaw unhinged completely, revealing a pit of writhing tongues. From deep inside, the voices of children wailed, calling for their mothers, begging for release. The sight nearly broke them, but they kept carving, marking the stone until the floor glowed faintly with the power of the symbols. The glow built into a circle, pulsing outward, forcing the Echo Man back. It shrieked, stumbling, its form flickering like smoke in a storm. For the first time it seemed weak, but with its weakness came desperation. It lunged forward, stretching unnaturally fast, its long arms snaring Emma around the waist. She screamed, kicking wildly as it dragged her toward its gaping maw. "Emma!" Alex shouted, dropping his camera and grabbing her hands. Sarah joined in, pulling with every ounce of strength. The symbols glowed brighter, searing the Echo Man's arms like fire, but it held on stubbornly, howling with rage. "Finish the seal!" Emma screamed. "Seal it now!" Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "Not without you! Do it!" Emma shouted again, voice breaking. "Don't let it win!" With trembling hands, Sarah carved the final symbol. The circle blazed with blinding light, flooding the mausoleum. The jars shattered all at once, voices exploding into the air like a hurricane. The sound was deafening, shaking the earth. The Echo Man shrieked, its body unraveling, dissolving into smoke and ash. The shadows writhed and dissipated, sucked into the glowing seal on the floor. The mausoleum groaned as though the entire structure might collapse. Emma screamed as the light seared the Echo Man's grip, tearing her free at the last second. The figure exploded into black mist, vanishing into nothing. And then, silence. The glow dimmed, leaving only the sound of their ragged breathing. Emma collapsed into Alex's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching the ground, her body shaking. Jason was gone. The jars were gone. The whispers were gone. But the mausoleum door creaked open slowly, as if offering them freedom. The three friends stumbled outside into the cold night air. The church loomed in the distance, silent once more. The forest was still. For the first time since they'd arrived, Willow Creek was quiet. But as they turned to leave the cemetery, Alex noticed something carved into the nearest stone. Fresh, jagged letters. Emma 2023. His blood ran cold. Emma followed his gaze, eyes widening in horror. "No, no, it's over. We stopped it. We sealed it." But Sarah shook her head slowly, voice trembling. "We didn't stop it. We just delayed it. It always takes someone." The wind shifted, carrying a faint lullaby through the trees. Emma clutched her chest, sobbing. Alex held her tighter, but the truth was undeniable. The Echo Man would return. The silence after the seal's glow faded was almost unbearable. The three remaining friends, Alex, Sarah, and Emma, stood in the cemetery, shaking, eyes wide with exhaustion and horror. The mausoleum sat behind them like a tomb of nightmares, its door hanging ajar, the shelves of jars now nothing but shattered glass and black stains on stone. Jason was gone. His name already carved into the earth like it had always been there. And now Emma's name had joined him. She stood frozen, staring at the freshly etched gravestone. Her legs trembled, breath coming in shallow gasps. "It can't be real," she whispered, almost to herself. "It's a trick, it's trying to scare me." But Sarah's voice broke the fragile silence. "It's not a trick. The legends, they always said the Echo Man takes one voice, one soul every 20 years. The seal wasn't to destroy him, it was to buy time. He marked you, Emma, you're next." Emma shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. "No, I'm not going to die here. We're leaving right now. I'll leave the country if I have to." Alex grabbed her shoulders, his face pale but determined. "We'll figure it out. We'll get out of Willow Creek and never come back, you hear me? We'll make it out." But even as he said it, the lullaby returned. Faint at first, drifting through the trees but growing louder with every breath. The same haunting tune they had heard their first night, only now it carried Emma's voice. She slapped her hands over her mouth in horror, but the sound didn't stop. It was her voice, detached, echoing through the forest, mocking her. "No," she whimpered. "It's already inside me." The ground beneath her feet trembled, cracks splitting the earth. Roots surged upward, wrapping around her ankles. She screamed, clawing at the ground, but the roots tightened, dragging her slowly toward the gravestone that bore her name. Alex and Sarah lunged, grabbing her arms, pulling with all their strength. "Hold on!" Alex shouted. Emma's eyes were wild, tears streaking her face. "Don't let go, please don't let." Her voice cut off as the roots yanked harder, dragging her waist-deep into the soil. She shrieked, thrashing violently, fingernails tearing against the dirt. Sarah sobbed, pulling until her muscles tore, but the earth itself wanted Emma. "Alex!" Emma screamed. "Don't let them take me." Alex's grip slipped, mud coating his hands. He fought with every ounce of strength, but the ground split open wider, swallowing Emma up to her chest. Her scream rose, splitting into layers of voices, the children's choir of Willow Creek echoing through her throat. And then, with one final pull, she was gone. The ground sealed shut, leaving only fresh, smooth dirt before the gravestone marked Emma 2023. Alex collapsed, screaming her name into the night. Sarah knelt beside him, sobbing into her hands. The forest fell silent again as if nothing had happened. No whispers, no lullabies, just silence, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that meant the land was satisfied for now. They stumbled back to their car at dawn, broken and hollow. Neither spoke the entire drive back to town. The world outside Willow Creek looked the same, but everything felt wrong. By the time they reached campus, Alex had stopped filming altogether. His once treasured camera lay abandoned in the trunk. Their YouTube channel, their dreams of fame, seemed like a joke now. Jason and Emma were gone. No one would believe the truth. Sarah couldn't stop shaking. Her notebook lay in her lap, filled with the legends she had so carefully researched. She stared at the last line of her notes, the part she hadn't read aloud to the others. If the Echo Man's choir grows too loud, the voices of the lost will spread beyond the hollow, haunting every ear that listens. She shut the notebook and swore never to open it again. Weeks passed. Alex tried to return to normal life, but he couldn't. Every night he heard the lullaby, faint but growing louder. Sometimes in the wind, sometimes in the hum of the refrigerator, sometimes from the shadows of his dorm room. He knew he wasn't safe. None of them were. One night, he woke to find his own name carved into the wall above his bed. Alex 2023. He broke down completely, smashing the wall with his fists, but the letters only deepened. His camera, long abandoned, turned on by itself. The red light blinked, and then, from the speakers, Emma's voice whispered, "Sing with us, Alex." Sarah didn't fare any better. She withdrew from classes, stopped answering calls, stopped leaving her room. One night her roommate found her sitting in the dark, humming the lullaby in perfect tune, her eyes blank. When asked what she was doing, she only whispered, "Listening." She disappeared the next day. Her bed was empty, the sheets pulled back as if she had simply sunk into the earth. By the end of the year, both Alex and Sarah were gone. Their names joined Jason's and Emma's on gravestones at Willow Creek, and the Echo Man's choir grew louder. Local kids whispered about new stories. Strange singing heard near the cemetery. Tourists who went missing after exploring the church ruins. Videos uploaded to Alex's abandoned channel, shaky footage of the woods at night, always ending with the lullaby. No one ever admitted to posting them. The legend of Willow Creek spread further than it ever had before, carried not just by whispers in the town, but through screens and speakers across the country. And somewhere in the shadows of Willow Creek, the Echo Man smiled. Because the more who listened, the louder his choir became.